to the Alexandra Levine live podcast. Today, we've got a packed show, from breaking news to informative topics that will keep you well informed. Tonight's Alexandra Levine live podcast starts now.
Well, hello, everyone. Hello. This is Alexandra Levine live with the America's Pulse Network. You are all in with me tonight. Alexandra Levine. We have some breaking news. It's not political this time, but this has something to do with some incidents that have happened. And it's very important that we memorialize these people and we keep them in our hearts. Let's go to the first breaking news by my good friend David Harris Jr. from Newsmax. So this is just insane what happened. Breaking news this morning, a JP Morgan executive allegedly used her power to sexually harass, abuse, drug, racially abuse, and threaten the career of a junior male employee. She's accused of turning the male broker into a, quote, sex slave. I bring this up because this actually comes on the heels of the movie Baby Girl, which was starred Nicole Kidman. Nicole Kidman was actually nominated for a Golden Globe for her performance. Nicole Kidman was the executive that was being taunted and tortured and manipulated by her 21-year-old employee, having an affair with him and so forth. And basically he said to her, you better do what I want or I could ruin your life, ruin your marriage, and so forth. It's basically what this woman did. It's disgusting that this is happening in the workplace. It's disgusting that this was allowed for so long. That's why we have something called HR. And I always tell people, if you've been sexually harassed, sexually assaulted at work, there's nothing wrong with reporting it. And I know, especially in high profile settings, such as if you're an intern or you work for a congressman or a senator or a governor. And a lot of times these men have power, these women have power, and they use their power in a very bad way. And if you, God forbid, report them, your careers could come to an end. But this is disgusting that someone at JP Morgan, an executive, is doing this. It shows you the lack of decency that JP Morgan Chase has, and also that he can't control his executives. I hate to say it. This is what happens when you have something called a DEI hire. She is a DEI hire. And I know a lot of countries outside, like in Australia, for example, they hire a lot of women. They're called DEI hires that really don't know what they're doing. They're very manipulative, and they find a way to make it to the top by really not doing any business and just making men their sex slaves. Well, I'm glad that this was called out. I'm glad that somebody said something, but this shouldn't have happened to begin with. This is disgusting. And again, if you see something, say something. If you're a woman and you don't feel comfortable going into the workforce with men, you have every right not to go. It doesn't matter if you're W-2 or 1099, you have to feel comfortable in the workforce and you have to feel comfortable where you are. Now, the next breaking news is very tragic to my heart. It's very, very sad. A nice New York rabbi, he took a trip to Colombia, and unfortunately he was in an area where there was a lot of Colombian gangs. And it's funny because a couple of my friends, they just went to Colombia, and I joked saying, hope you don't end up with those gangs. They've been reading reports of people getting killed. Well, this actually really happened. New York rabbi found dismembered, stuffed in a closet after being killed by a Colombian gang. This is a real story, guys. Real story, true story. It's disgusting, totally, totally disgusting that this happened. And I believe that he was discriminated against. I believe he was dismembered and killed because he was a rabbi, a very Orthodox rabbi. You could see he's very religiously observant. He wears a kippah. He has payas. He wears a religious hat for holidays. It's very disgusting to me, very disgusting that this had to happen. And this happened on the heels of Passover as we're going into Shavuot. Shavuot is a very important day in Judaism. It's when we obtain the Torah. And it's really, really sad that this had to happen. And I feel bad for his family. And I really hope, guys, that we memorialize the fallen. We memorialize this guy. And I feel so bad for his family. If I do find a GoFundMe for his family up in New York, I will definitely put it on our network. This should never happen to anyone, regardless of their religion. It's disgusting. And again, our hearts go out to his family. Now, I normally don't do a monologue, but I felt like tonight I had to do something because a lot of people really don't understand what transcribed with the King and Queen of England and the President and the First Lady. The grace, the beautiful decor, the way that the President greeted the King and Queen. It was so magical and it was so beautiful. And President Trump had a really great relationship with his mother, with Queen Elizabeth. And he talks about her. And there was a guy who just wrote a book about Queen Elizabeth II and what a wonderful monarch she was. And people really don't see or understand why President Trump greeted the people the way that he did. And of course, we have this whole thing with kings. President Trump is a king. President Trump is a king. No, he's not a king. This showed that he wasn't a king. But it was interesting, and we'll get into that later, how the Democrats in the halls of Congress stood up for King Charles. They literally stood up for a king. But they're against, President Trump because they consider him a king, and they have these no kings rallies all over the country. So the hypocrisy again of the Democrats shouted really loudly. But the first picture I want to show you is, I call it the two ladies in white. So this was the second day that Queen Camilla was there with the First Lady. I mean, just beautiful how they color coordinated. They were both wearing hats. It was a rainy day. And the president, he just honored him and welcomed him up on the stage, said such beautiful things about him. Actually commented that his mom, his late mother, had a big crush on Charles when he was younger. And it was a rainy day. And it was just so beautiful, again, to see the grace, the honor that President Trump and the FLOTUS gave to Camilla and to Prince Charles. Let's go to the next picture. So the next picture depicts the evening. So that night they had a gorgeous dinner in honor of the king and queen. And look at the beautiful dress that the FLOTUS is wearing. She looks beautiful in everything that she wears, and the tuxedo. And to see the armed guards there with the British flag in the background. And then as you walk in, the dinner was just exquisite food. The entertainment was beautiful. They had opera singers there. They had violinists. They had people from the military that were performing behind everybody. And they had some very famous people there. The president's children were there. They had some very famous Fox News anchor people there and people in the media that were there, certain people. I mean, it was a very beautiful night. It was a very, very beautiful night. And Laura Ingraham even commented how she's never seen such a dinner in her life in the years that she's been reporting President Trump and so forth and other presidents. And we'll go to the next picture, and it'll show you what King Charles and what Camilla was wearing. And the jewels that she was wearing were actually jewels from famous queens. As you know, when you become the queen, you inherit, they call it the queen's jewels. So she's either wearing Queen Elizabeth's jewels, Queen Victoria's jewels, Queen Anne's jewels, Queen Catherine's jewels, whatever Queen of England that they had, those are what they call the queen's jewels. And it was very beautiful for her to wear that, to show that off. A lot of people picked on her outfit a little bit. But you know what? I think she looks great, and she looks happy, and that's what's important. Now, let's go to the next slide. This was really interesting. The Newsmax was reporting that because President Trump has Scottish lineage in his blood through his mother, that somehow he's King Charles's 15th cousin. So this guy, Anthony Macro, said, did you all hear we don't have a king, but we have royal blood. Trump is 15th cousin to King Charles. Well, I can tell you, the story has been debunked. That was a speculation. Some people think that maybe President Trump is his 15th cousin. I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I asked a lot of people that are famous historians. I think they just want another news cycle. And then President Trump, he's so cute. He retruthed a picture of him and King Charles and said, the kings. So it was really, really cute. And he was kind of mocking the fact that, he could be a royalty. And there was a news anchor that asked him, President Trump, we heard you may be the 15th cousin to King Charles. Like, oh my God, that's great. He's like, I would love to go into Buckingham Palace. I've never been to Buckingham Palace. I'd love to live in Buckingham Palace. So, President Trump kind of played it off. It was very funny. But my question to my audience later is, do you believe in this? Do you think that President Trump is the 15th cousin to King Charles? Do you think that this was just an extra news story that the mainstream media was trying to fill in? But it's very interesting that people, that were complaining that President Trump was a king or acting like a king, and now they're saying, well, he may have royal blood in him. So I find that very ironic and very interesting. And then this last slide. So again, the irony of everything, like I said earlier. So King Charles, he spoke in the halls of Congress, and all the Democrats stood for him. The No Kings crowd greets King Charles with a standing ovation. President Trump, he made a statement that night at the dinner. He said, "I'm very impressed that King Charles got every single Democrat to stand in Congress. I can't even get that. They all protest me." So these people like Ilhan Omar and Rashid Tlaib and Ayanna Pressley that were there all stood up for King Charles, didn't protest him. I guess they just love what he's doing over in England and the UK. Let me tell you something. The economy in the UK is not doing very well. The rise of anti-Semitism in the UK is atrocious. And if people didn't know, while King Charles and Queen Camilla were visiting, there was a huge terrorist attack in the UK on Jews. It hurt Jewish people. Some were even killed. The anti-Semitism has gotten really bad in the last several years in the UK. The Prime Minister of the UK, he does nothing to combat anti-Semitism. He works with Zelensky. He works with George Soros. They work hand in hand with the EU to make sure that they have tons and tons of money to import all these illegals. And a lot of them are illegal terrorists, illegal Muslims. A lot of them live in the UK. They're trying to help Mr. Zelensky. They want him to beat Vladimir Putin. I mean, the whole thing is just asinine, how the parliamentary system works in the UK. But what I'm scared about is that the country of Hungary, they just went through a whole election. And the new guy, one minute he sounds like a capitalist Republican, the next he sounds like a radical leftist. And he will be probably working with the EU, and he probably will be signing off to give Zelensky $90 billion, which is what we don't want. The guy claims that he will keep building the wall and making sure the immigration system is stricter than it was under Orban, but I don't know if I believe that, especially after he said he would arrest Netanyahu if he enters his country. The hatred against Jews has to stop. We're in what I told you. The holiday through Passover, now we are doing something called counting the Omer up into Shavuot, which is where we get the Torah, the 10 Commandments. Can we not just have peaceful holidays? Can we not just have a peaceful holiday? Again, people honored the king and queen. President Trump honored the king and queen. My question to the other European leaders, will they honor the FLOTUS and the POTUS the same way? Will they give President Trump the grandeur and the respect that President Trump has given them over the years? Will they do the same thing with President Trump and Melania that President Trump did with the king and queen? Because this was an exquisite visit, to the point where King Charles and Camilla came back today for a final goodbye before they left to go back to the UK. But they had a great few days. There was not one thing that they complained about. There was not one thing bad that happened. It was a great moment. A great moment coming off an amazing dinner, an amazing visit. So again, my question to the other European leaders, will you honor the president as well as he honored King Charles and Queen Camilla? Now we go into segment one. So segment one, let's start off with the first slide, please. So this is really important, guys. We're still dealing with if John Thune is going to push to pass the Save America Act. This is something that's so important to Americans right now. And as you know, current Americans are going through midterms. We're going through early voting in certain states. We're going through primaries. I want to make sure that this is passed before any major elections are happening. I mean, they're all major, but I'm talking about huge gubernatorial races out there, huge municipality races out there, congressional races out there. This is so important that each governor, like my governor, Ron DeSantis, steps it up and signs a bill to redistrict out these damn Democrats that have been there for years, that do not have the American people's best interest at heart. And my governor set the stage to overturn the horribleness of what happened in Virginia a couple weeks ago. But President Trump said, America's elections are rigged, stolen, and a laughingstock all over the world. We're either going to fix them or we won't have a country any longer. I'm asking all Republicans to fight for the following. Save America Act. Number 1, all voters must show photo ID identification. All voters must show proof of citizenship in order to vote. No mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military, or travel. I 100% agree with that. 100% agree with that. All voters must show voter ID, some type of identification. It's very important. We have a bunch of liberal states that it's not a requirement. We're going to be interviewing someone in the next in the next 10 minutes that can tell you all about that. Let's go to the next slide, please. So real Donald Trump, he got a huge victory this week. And it's so funny because he didn't know about it until someone in the Oval Office, a reporter, asked him a question about it. He's like, what are you talking about? Did we win? Is it good for Republicans? And actually the left-wing mainstream media and anchor woman said, yes, it was a win for Republicans. She didn't want to say it. I could tell I could feel in her body and her face, she was cringing to say it, but she actually admitted that the Republicans won something. So it didn't happen today, but it happened a couple of days ago. The 6-3 Supreme Court decision in the Callus case is a big one for equal protection under the law as it returns the Voting Rights Act to its original intent, which was to protect against intentional racial discrimination. Thank you to brilliant Justice Samuel Alito for authoring this important and appropriate opinion. The fact that it had to be even authored to begin with is asinine. I thought we were over racial discrimination. I thought we were over discrimination, period. But apparently we're not. And there was something that was overturned recently in a state that said, only white people can live here. I mean, the fact that that was even put into law is disgusting. The fact that it took this long to overturn it is even more disgusting. Again, we shouldn't be having to deal with racial discrimination. And who started it? Barack Hussein Obama. Barack Hussein Obama started with the racial discrimination, the Islamophobia, the xenophobia. It came back under Biden, Kamala Harris, which was still Obama. And George Soros, of course, pushed these socialist narratives in. And we're all created equal, not in his image. No, that's not true. What George Soros' mission is to say everybody has to act the same, work the same, make the same living. Everybody has to have the same health care. That's socialism. The government tells you what to do. But here, the Supreme Court, they brought justice back to the Lady Justice, I should say. And it's very important to note this decision because this was a big win for President Trump and for the Republicans. But the fact that the Supreme Court even had to make a decision on this is asinine, very asinine. And yeah, it's true. My friend Donald Willinger, when was World War XI? So that was a comment made by Congresswoman Ilhan Omar in January 2025 when President Trump, a couple days after he took office again, she says that President Trump's going to make our country turn into World War XI. World War II. World War XI, does she not know Roman numerals? Is she that stupid? And she's a congresswoman. World War XI. That's just like beyond stupid. The woman hates our country. But to screw up like that in front of the nation is embarrassing, and she should be embarrassed. She's disgusting. Let's put up the next slide. So the next slide is by Edward Cohn. And again, he talked about Florida. Democracy is booming in Florida. He's a Floridian. The House voted today and a whopping 83 representatives voted for redistricting as opposed to 28 stinking no votes. Yes, we can. The Florida House of Representatives passed a bill approving the state's new congressional redistricting map in the lower chamber. That was yesterday. The map unveiled by my governor, Ron DeSantis, could add 4 congressional seats for Republicans ahead of the 2026 midterms. The vote was 83-28 in the House. I applaud the Florida House of Representatives for doing this. I know there's been some divide. I know there's some rhinos in the Florida House, but I appreciate them doing this. I appreciate the governor working steadily and working fast to get this passed as well. I know he spoke with a lot of these House reps to get this passed, and it will go on my governor's desk and he will sign it. It's so important, guys. It's so important to get with your governor. And I know there's a lot of liberal governors out there, but start with the Republican governors. As you know, Indiana had a huge issue with the rhinos in the state legislature that would not pass a bill. Indiana really screwed it up. And that's why in Virginia, people voted no. But again, because of this happening, I really hope that it will override and overturn what was voted on in Virginia, because the governor of Virginia is a piece of crap. And she met with the king and queen, and she talked about what her platform is, what she's been doing. She even talked about the legislation she passed, and he shook his head. He was not supportive of what she's doing to her state. And so many people are leaving Virginia. They're going to West Virginia, they're going to Florida, they're going to South Carolina, they're going down south because they've hashtag had enough. They've hashtag had enough of the BS. I really wish that more Republican governors, like my governor, Ron DeSantis, would do their due diligence and work on this new congressional redistricting map. And the funny thing is that the Democrats, they're all up in arms about it. Gavin Newsom is oh, we're going to do new redistricting. Governor Westmore, oh, we got to redistrict to make sure Andy Harris is not the Republican congressman anymore. Make it all 8 Democrats. It's so funny. The Democrats are known for gerrymandering, but when the Republicans try to do something right, they get schooled by the Democrats over it. It's disgusting. It's really sick. But this is a victory, guys, for the Republicans. And guess what? It's giving people hope now to go out and vote. And I'll talk about this later. We have so many seats now, so many elections, re-elections. I want those Republicans to go out and vote in these primary elections. I know they're in the heart of the summer. People go on vacation, they get lackadaisical, whatever. But the hardcore 3 to 4 star, 5-star Republicans that always vote in every primary re-election, do not feel disenfranchised. Do not feel discouraged. I don't care if you live in a red state or a blue state. Go out and vote. Exercise your right to vote, because if you don't vote, it gives the Democrats more power. If you don't vote, we get more of these radical crazies in there. All these special elections are happening, and all these radical crazies are getting in. It's disgusting. Our country is going to be turning into a terrorist country with all these terrorists that are becoming congressmen and senators, or trying to become congressmen and senators. Don't allow that to happen. Take back your country. You have the will to vote. I can tell you on a personal note, they have something called the Baltimore Jewish Council, owned by the Associated. They claim on their flyer, candidate forum, May 13th at such and such a place at such and such a time, that we invited all candidates to come speak. And then they list the specific districts. It's Baltimore County Council districts, 2, 3, and 4, Baltimore state districts, and they're 11, 14, and 17. Doesn't say about Baltimore County Executive, says Baltimore County Sheriff, even though he's being primaried out. And there's another position in there too. So I wrote to the woman, and I said, your flyer says all candidates. How come they're all Democrats? And she said, what are you talking about? We invited all candidates. I said, no, you didn't. I said, there's 9 Baltimore County districts. There's 9. They had a vote. They moved it from 7 to 9. Why are you only inviting certain people running in those districts? I said, there's no Republicans. You did not invite even people running for Baltimore County Executive. Now, Baltimore County Executive, there's 3 Democrats that are part of the Baltimore County Council that are running for Baltimore County Executive, but there's 2 Republicans and an independent that is also running for Baltimore County Executive, but she didn't invite them. So then, after I caught her in the lie, she writes me back. She says, well, we're only focused on the districts that have a majority of Jews. I said, well, what about Baltimore County Executive? And she said, we did reach out to all the candidates. We reached out to them several months ago. Well, I contacted the independent and one of the Republicans that was running for Baltimore County Executive. They confirmed with me that they had not been contacted, emailed to come to this forum. Now, this forum is supposed to be open to the public, and it's for constituents, voters, to meet who their next county executive is, county council, and so forth. But they limited it to just a Democrat forum. This is a partisan forum, not bipartisan. This is a partisan forum. And I guess they centered it only on Jewish Democrats. And let me tell you something. I'm a Jew, and I worked my butt off to get Jews to hashtag leave the Democrat Party. And this was before October 7th. But I also educated my Jewish Democrat friends to see the light between these Democrats and the Republicans. And I told them, don't vote for party, vote who represents you. That's why a lot of Jewish Democrats voted for Trump in the 2016, 2020, and especially the 2024 election. Now, I know we're in a primary, but there's a lot of Jewish Republicans in the Baltimore area, especially in Pikesville and Owings Mills and Reisterstown and Towson. I know a lot of them. They would like to hear from all of the candidates. But because the Baltimore Jewish Council, the Associate, only invited Democrat candidates, they're basically telling you, if you're a Jew, you should only vote Democrat. This is your only choice as